everybody. Welcome to Obscure Animation. And this month, we are talking about a recent 2022, 2023, depending how you look at it, animated film. Gonna be so fun. We're talking about Little Nicholas, and it's happy as can be, is the coda.
The little
Yeah.
subtitle or whatever you want to call
Yes. And I'm Filkita Rachel Wagner. Stanford's here.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm so glad we can talk about this cute movie.
I know. Well, you had told me about it for Animation's film, and I tried to get a chance to watch it, but they didn't give me a screener then. But then I watched it, like, I think in December. I finally got a screener, and then I just rewatched it yesterday.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't watch it in time for it to be on my best movies of 2022 video.
Yeah.
But it would be now if I was making a new video. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. I got to see, just unbeknownst to me, it was the U.S. Premiere of the film at the Animation Film Festival, and last year, and one of the directors was there. It was Benjamin Masobra, and I'm sure I am butchering Benjamin's name.
A lot of French names here.
Sorry. But his co-director, whose name is Amandine Fredon, she was presenting at another festival. So I think this movie's really made the festival rounds last year, and it just was such a breath of fresh air. I think I just smiled the whole time.
Me too. And it's really a neat film, and we'll talk about it more, but the way that it is both a cute film for kids, family film, but also a film about friendship and a film about creation and an artist's life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's very unique that way.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, and it feels very French.
Oh, absolutely. It feels so French and even just European, it totally has that vibe about it, but in like happy French way,
well,
rather than depressing.
It feels kind of French New Wave, almost like 400 Blows or something that, like,
yeah, it does.
that Agnes Varda would make, or somebody like that. I could see her doing a movie kind of like this.
I can too. Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially that last movie that she did, that documentary, Faces Places.
Oh, I love that so much.
That was so good.
So good.
I forget which movie won for best documentary. I mean, the documentary branch is ridiculous, but I was just like, it's not as good as this movie. It's not as good as Faces Places.
I was really rooting for Faces Places. Yeah.
But I don't know. It just has that kind of like thoughtful. Remember when we watched Louise by the Shore?
Yes.
It definitely feels a lot like that.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know what that is, Rachel. Is it just the hand-drawn animation?
Yeah.
The pacing, the way that the shots are framed. I try to figure that, because it just, like, what makes this feel so French?
Yeah, I know. I wish if we have any French listeners, please pipe in.
Please help us.
Help me. Yeah, there's also just something about the French New Wave and kind of its influence on films even to this day, that it's very personal, very introspective, that usually is somewhat meandering, doesn't have like a ton of plot.
Mm-hmm.
That is just about these people that we're spending kind of time with, and I think that that's something for almost all of those films.
Yeah, well said.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. There's this sense in this film that I feel like they, as you mentioned, they walk. It's not even a fine line, but it's brilliantly done in that they've got these cheery stories about little Nicholas that are interwoven with the stuff about the creation of it, and then you said in the artist's life, and those, the artist's lives weren't necessarily easy, and there's some tragedy in there, yet it's
Mm-hmm.
still handled in such a way that it's just not this depressing movie by any means.
Yeah, well, and
It's
it
just happy and breezy and so charming.
kind of like Louise by the Shore too, in the sense that like that movie isn't really like maudlin really at all. Like
No,
she's
it's
kind of a
not.
grisly, kind of a crusty old character.
Yeah.
And it's the same way here. It manages to be very sweet and endearing without being patronizing
Right.
or
Right.
yeah, what
Overly
people would say
saccharine
like
or anything.
yeah, what people think Hallmark movies are. People that talk about Hallmark movies that haven't ever watched one.
Yeah. They criticize it without ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie just felt so loving, so kind. And you can tell, I think, that Renee's daughter was involved in the script.
Mm-hmm.
Renee Goscinny, which is one of the characters. Again, I'm sorry, mispronouncing the name, but he is the writer.
Yeah, he's the
and
writer,
animator, but mainly writer.
Yep.
In there, and his daughter is the screenwriter for the movie, co-screenwriter, and I think you can feel that, and especially the end when he talks about when they talk about that dinner that they had, and he talks about how much Renee loved his children.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel that just
yeah, you can.
He didn't know he had so little time.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the, I mean, clearly I love this movie, soup to nuts, but I loved the loving portrayal in this film of both of these creators, the writer and the artist. And if they had sordid stuff in their past or bad behavior, whatever, they just didn't go there.
Yeah.
And then also though the stories are so cute and affirming, life affirming in their own way, in that they're just so kind of just like a regular day, But I can no wonder these books are popular because they created this book series, right? Which this is the first time I've ever heard of it, but then again, I've never lived in France. So,
I wondered if you'd heard of them. Evidently, 222 stories.
Yeah,
they wrote. They say at the end.
Yeah, I've never heard of them, but in doing a little research, there's been, other presentations of this. I think there's some kind of I don't know if I think it looks like a TV series that was done in CG that looked actually kind of awful. But,
and then there's also
a live action film.
Live action film. Yeah. 2009.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that that this is the first time, given that it's an illustrated book, it's kind of interesting. This is the first animated treatment.
Do you know what it reminded me a lot of, Rachel? And I wanted to get your opinion on this. It reminded me of Charles Schulz in Peanuts, in that, Charles Schulz, I think, was an emotionally healthy, decent person.
Yeah.
And as I felt these Frenchmen were portrayed, and Peanuts, I think, are just such a fun comic.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember loving it as a kid, and I still, anytime somebody posts a Peanuts thing, or I follow Snoopy on Instagram and so I just think, oh, that's fun. I mean, it's just clever and heartwarming and anyway.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like a French, Charlie Brown and Little Nicholas are completely different, because Little Nicholas is not like a kid that's like down on his luck or always,
Yeah.
It's none of that sort of stuff, but just like the tone of it, though, just that there's all these different characters and they're at school. I mean, they're just like living their lives, and it's just it was super fun.
I couldn't find that much information about this movie. There was not a Wikipedia or anything. All I could find was this interview that the director had
and you
done.
sent that to me. I read that. Yeah.
And so it was interesting. The character, I guess, is often compared to like Dennis the Menace.
Uh-huh.
He also kind of reminded me of like The Great Brain. Did you ever read those books?
Yes, I did read
Great
those
Brain.
books.
It
Yeah.
kind of reminded me a little bit of that too.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Benjamin Massobre, he says that he offered me the job because he knew I had a special history with the Little Nicholas books, as I came from a family of school teachers and they used the books to teach students to read. So when we finally secured financing for the project, he asked me and Amandine Fredon to direct the movie. We started work on the movie early 2020 when France was in full lockdown for COVID. So that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he says, I'd love to learn more about the lives of Goscinny and Sempe. We were able to find some material in their lives that cast a new light on how and why they created Little Nicholas. Structurally, it was also a difficult movie, which makes sense that he would say that. It's not your usual 3 or 4 act movie. We put a lot of heart into it because instead of having a narrative arc, it was an emotional one.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a movie about resilience, about 2 men who were robbed of their childhood, one who was the victim of an abusive stepfather, and one who lost part of his family in the Jewish Holocaust.
Yeah.
These 2 men created Little Nicholas, who was the perfect dream childhood, and were able to live through him. Amandine and I found that the essence of the movie was the story of their resilience. And I'd say their friendship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's such a great description of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, it's accurate. That was my experience with the film for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let's talk about the artistic style. The sort of sketchy, it feels similar to when we talked about Ernest and Celestine.
Yes.
That kind of sketchy,
yes,
illustrative kind of style.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why it feels, French or European too,
Mm-hmm.
is that sketch, that animation style that, and I love this, that it reminded me too somewhat of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
When that it kind of comes off the page in a way. Thought that was just so clever the way that was handled, and I thought the animation was beautiful. It's simple, but just beautiful and evocative. And hello, it was in France. I loved it. It felt like a trip to France in some ways too.
Yeah, and the way that they were able to really tell the story of Renee and Sempe and Little Nicholas without it feeling too messy.
Yeah, I agree.
I saw a movie at Sundance. This wasn't animated, but I saw a movie called The Persian Version, which was pretty good. I liked it.
I read about that, Rach. That's one I wanted to see, and I didn't get to.
Yeah, I liked it. But it felt messy. It was trying to tell her story and her mother's story back in Iran, and it flipped back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it just didn't quite work. And so it's a risky thing, like trying to tell all these stories, especially in an animated film.
Yeah, agreed.
But I think
they pulled it off, didn't they? Because I never thought it was ever convoluted or heavy-handed, or anything.
Yeah, and it starts off with Renee. One of the first things we learn is Renee has died, and he says to Little Nick, "What should I do?" and then you start to learn about Renee and little Nicholas. And so it just, like, having that kind of loss starting out the story, I think really helps you become emotionally invested, like, right away.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, right, exactly, instantly. No, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, good point.
Yeah. And so then we see little Nicholas, his dad buys a television set, and it's a 21-inch set, and the neighbors are very jealous. Because those old TVs were just they were so heavy and big and
Oh, they were so great and
difficult.
so heavy and oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I loved both of the scenes with the grandparents
Oh, me too.
that were so good, because you have the grandma coming to visit for little Nicholas, and he says, "I really love my grandma. She says I'm very clever, very funny, and I look a lot like my mom was when she was my age." And then grandma gives him a plane, and then you see him literally flying the plane. Like, he's in the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just so cute. I mean, all of my grandparents are gone now, but I had a very close relationship with my grandma on my dad's side, and my grandfather on my mom's side. I was close with the others in different ways, but very special. And yeah, we always lived in Maryland, or when I was in middle school and high school, we were in Maryland. They were in Utah and California. So when they would come to visit, it was like a big special thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like they lived just down the street. So
Yeah,
that is really cute.
that relationship with his grandparents was so cute, and I again, I just am always so happy because I don't think we get to see it a lot, and maybe just because this doesn't necessarily exist a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
Just a healthy family,
Yeah.
an emotionally healthy family. I mean, little Nicholas, he's kind of naughty or precocious, right? I mean, he's just a little kid, but his parents love him, and I love the relationship with his grandparents. I just thought that was just the cutest.
It was so cute. And I think the thing that's great about grandparents is that they are in an ideal world, at least, they are the people that can just love unconditionally.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a grandfather who was a mean old man, but my other grandparents, I like, they don't have the responsibility of protection and care. And I mean, some do, but like, in an ideal world, they can just love.
Yeah,
That's all their job
great
is.
way to say it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the grandparents in this, that's what they do
Mm-hmm.
in this film.
Yeah. And then we also find out that Senpei, that he says things were tough for my parents. All I got at home were beatings, and that he felt free and safe with his grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first person I ever really loved. That was beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And I kind of feel that way sometimes by my grandpa, my mom's dad. He was the best. The best human I have ever known in my life. I think we'll all miss him so much. It was 2001. He's been gone that long.
Long time.
Yeah. We learn a little bit more about Renee. Renee from Argentina, and then we find out that we'll learn a little bit about how Renee and Senpei met, how they became friends, and that Senpei started drawing because he was bored, and he just decided to make it a career. And so he joins the army in order to live in Paris, but he was terrible at the army. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that was funny too.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I used to love to listen to the Car Talk guys so much.
Oh, aren't they great?
They were my favorite. And Tom would talk about him being in the Army. He's like, the Army and I were not a great fit. He has some really funny stories.
Oh,
But
so funny.
yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Then he meets Renee, who was a little bit older. He was like 7 years older than Senpei. And that Renee was the first one to encourage him in his drawing. He says, this was my first Parisian friend. And I think that we just don't get enough stories about friendship.
I agree. And again, maybe that's one of the reasons that this was so appealing to me, because I thought their friendship and artistic collaboration was really good, very interesting. And again, I'm just kind of, the broken record word is it just seemed healthy to me, just like this was not a dysfunctional relationship. This was one that, I'm sure it had its struggles, but they worked well together, and created some really wonderful stuff. And a lot of it.
Yeah.
They were prolific.
Yeah, 222.
You said, yeah.
And so they tell little Nicholas, who's this actual little figure that they interact with and talk to. And I think there's one point where I think it's Renee who says, "Oh, you talk to him too?"
Yeah.
And so they both know they do it. And he goes to school and he doesn't want to go to school. He says, school is terrific. You can make friends there. And then they play dodgeball and like get all kinds of roughhousing. And then
the roughhousing cracked me up. I mean, because it's such a little boy thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just kind of...
Dodgeball should be like a war crime, I think. It's the worst.
Dodgeball is the worst. Yeah.
And
it's violent.
Yeah. And then Luis gets invited over, and little Nicholas, he thinks that he says, "Are you out of your mind? That's a girl." Which is funny. But then he ends up loving her, and he says, "Can we bring more girls to the house?" Yeah, and then I thought there was just a really nice sort of montage scene in the middle with Nicholas flying, playing soccer, going to space. I really like that whole, when you see him in space.
I did too. Wasn't that
was cute?
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. And they do say in the interview, he says that there were so many studios involved. In France, we have a lot of indie studios that joined forces to produce a movie, and sometimes we just build them from scratch to produce a project. Among the studios that helped us create the animation were Sean 2, which is run by let's see more. It says that they had places in France, and most of the sets and compositing were done in Luxembourg, so I found myself taking a lot of trains in Europe throughout the production. I think the characters and their stories so resonate with the audiences. The stories written by Goscinny are in first person. Nicholas is narrating these books, and they are still very funny. Although life is very different for kids growing up in the world today, they still have similar experiences with their families, their friends, at schools, and teachers. The comedy and poetry are still relevant today, which I think is true.
I think it's true too, because again, maybe that's why it reminded me of Peanuts too, because Peanuts kind of has a 1950s or 60s kind of feel to it, I think.
Yeah.
But yet the themes are timeless, even though some of the trappings might be different, the themes and the emotional connections, I think, live on.
Like things like having a crush or feeling lonely or getting bullied at school or not fitting in, all those stuff that still today.
It's very universal today.
Yeah, it's universal. Yeah. And so then little Nicholas wants a coloring set, and he learns to draw, and that was very sweet.
That was sweet. I love that.
Yeah. I also loved the scene where little Nicholas goes to the movies with Renee. I mean, I feel like that's the scene for 2022 is the person in the movie theater. Like we got it in like Babylon and Empire of Light and Fablemans and
exactly.
So, it's like everybody has that iconic moment. I guess it was me watching Jurassic Park. That would be the moment. For me. But it was cute. And then Renee goes to New York. He says, "My life is a story about boats. And there's always comedy all around if you look." So then we get with little Nicholas, Mary Jane comes to visit because he wants more girls. Because he liked Louise so much. And they play soccer. They're all trying to impress Mary Jane, which when you think about it, really the girl with the red hair in Peanuts is very similar kind of a thing. You know, that Charlie Brown has a crush on the girl with the red hair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then they break the tree climbing and the dad's like, "What, my tree?" And then it was very sad that so the Nazis are growing in Argentina and in everywhere, and that Renee is told to stay in Argentina. The three of his mother's brothers were deported and never came back, which is just so sad.
Yeah.
And then Senpei, that's when he talks about the beating and how much he loved his grandpa. And then he says, "Thanks to you, little Nicholas, I'm living the dream childhood I never had." And that's very, very sweet.
Yeah.
And then they have this whole like summer at the sea and all of them with their fishing reels. That was so cute.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just smiling the whole time.
Yeah.
And I loved to. I mean, might have already mentioned this, Rachel, but that these artists could create out of their own hard childhoods and sadness and trauma something so positive, and that could bring joy to the readers, and then also to us as moviegoers, and hopefully maybe it helped them heal too.
It did feel like a little bit that way when you were watching it, and I mean, I don't think about trips to the ocean because unfortunately my parents are not ocean people. I love the ocean so much, but they just don't. I want them to so much, but they don't. But my dad did enjoy boating, and we did go boating a lot. And whether it was in Lake Powell or when we were in Maryland at the Potomac or whatever. And some of my best memories as growing up were going boating because how much I love the water.
Yeah,
I love being in the water, and so I just have such happy memories of going boating, and I think it's like the perfect family activity because like any athletic level can have fun, and you can just sit on the boat. You can just swim. You can at any age level, because it was hard in my family because that we had much younger and then older teens. Because my mom had a baby when I was 10 and one when I was 16 and one when I was 18. And so you had this kind of interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
and so we would go boating and that's just something that I really remember enjoying very much. But those summer trips, like whatever you did as a family, I feel like that's like really important. And that you make time for stuff like that. They talk about wholesome recreation being really important to family, and I think it's true.
Yeah,
it's true for those memories.
Yeah, for sure.
The ending of this movie really got me. It really did. Watching it over again today, So we saw at the beginning, of course, that Renee dies, but then he dies of the heart attack at the end. And he says it was such a shock. Nobody wanted to laugh anymore. And then he talks about this last dinner that they had together the week before he died. And he says, when you're an adult, it's not easy to see your friends. A week before he died, I went to dinner with him, and he says, you, my fellow, are eternal. The three of us, including little Nicholas, will always be together. And I just thought that was so lovely, because it is true. The older you get, even in the virtual era, it is so much harder to get together, that when people have just family commitments, and it's just a challenge to keep those friendships alive.
Yeah, it's true. Life's just gets so busy, and there's so much going on, but yeah, the friendships are what's the most important thing, I think. The relationships is what remain.
And you have those special friends that you might go even a decade or something without seeing them, but then as soon as you do see them, it's just as if you had never left.
Yeah, you just pick up right where you left off. Yeah.
And that's what you felt with Renee and Simpe. That it just picked right up, and it almost reminded me of like Dinner with Andre or something like that. This like friendship, this very simple like moment that they had together.
Yeah,
it was really good.
I thought the structure of that last part was very interesting. How they did that.
Yeah, it's always an interesting thing before my grandma had basically a stroke. I had this conversation with her because I had sent her this bracelet that said God can be everywhere, so he gave us grandmas.
Oh, that's
I sent her this bracelet,
darling.
And and we had this great conversation. I vividly remember it. And then she actually ended up living for, I think, another like 10 years, but it was never quite the same after that stroke. She couldn't like articulate as well. She just wasn't, that energy just wasn't quite there after that. And so I don't know. It's just an interesting experience. You have these things, just like a simple dinner, or chat on the phone because of a cheesy Christmas gift, like that you don't realize at the time how important they are, and then you look back and you're just so grateful that you did it. That you
absolutely. You just look back and just see no regrets on that one.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
I thought that was just such a lovely, beautiful moment. They did a great job with it. And and the director, he said, it's kind of interesting. He says that he got his start back in the 90s in animation. Says that back then, when I first arrived in Paris, I was lucky to get my start in animation. Back then in France, we were producing only one movie every 2 years. And now we are so lucky because we're making 10 movies each year in different styles and content. And that would include Illumination, because they're in France.
Yeah.
I feel like we're living in the golden age of animation.
Oh, yeah.
Even big US studios are exploring new ways of making CG movies with movies like Spider-Verse and The Bad Guys. It's very exciting time to be working in animation.
I think so too.
Yeah, would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. You know, at least from an outsider's perspective, or just a fanboy perspective, that the amount of animation and the content that we're getting, it's really it's something special. And maybe, you know, there's some hiccups along the way, like when Netflix doesn't hit its earnings numbers and then they have to slash some films or whatever they have in development, which is a bummer. But still, you know, you just look at the output and it's and there's so much of it is the thing too, and that's really exciting to me.
True. I mean, last year, so I had in my top 15 movies, I had Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. You could even make a claim, Avatar, The Way of Water.
Oh yeah,
animated film.
Animated.
Little Nicholas, Apollo 10.5, Space Age Childhood.
Yep.
Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers in my top 15.
Yeah. I mean, Rachel, when has that ever happened?
And then I have The Bad Guys at 16.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have My Father's Dragon at 20. So in my top 20.
Yeah, your top 20.
Yeah, that's really
remarkable.
Great. I mean, it is amazing that I can have that many and I don't have I guess Chip and Dale. Aside from Chip and Dale, I don't have any Disney in there, which is kind of amazing. And so yeah, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. So almost half of my top 20 movies are animated. Films. Yeah. So it's I agree with it's exciting. And it's going to be interesting to see what Disney does to kind of keep up, you know, because about every decade Disney goes through like this little slump.
I know.
And then something will happen that'll jolt it back.
Yeah.
and then it will Disney/Pixar. And then it will get back up. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens, you know, and how long they're kind of and what that jolt is.
It will be, you know, because I wondered if Wish, you know, Walt Disney Animation Studios' feature this year is going to be the film to do that. I don't know. You know, I mean, we don't know enough about it, but also I think you and I both are kind of cautiously optimistic, right?
Yeah.
About it.
Yeah. And same with Elemental.
Yeah.
But
then they've got, you know, we were joking about this, all the untitled Disney animation, you know, movies that are coming out over the next. We hope that they get a title eventually. Yeah. I'm kidding.
But I mean, there's been these rumors that Disney is going to do a 2D animated film.
Yes.
And I really thought that they were going to announce it. And honestly, if I was John Lasseter, which I'm the furthest thing from, but if I was, and I really wanted to make a splash with Skydance, you know, with their new animated company, I would have Brad Bird do an Iron Giant sequel. I think everybody would go.
Everybody would lose their minds.
I mean, that would be huge. And
oh my goodness.
I think it would be such like a powerful thing for their studio to kind of get things going, you know?
Yep.
I don't know. Seems like a no-brainer to me, but what do I know? So, but anyway,
know a lot. And and that would be something. Or honestly, if one of these big studios dares to do a film in a hand-drawn animated style, even if they're using a lot of CG tools.
There was a lot of talk about it. Like I felt like it was sort of in the air that they might announce something at D23, and then they never did. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I just figure at this point with Disney Plus, why not?
Yeah. You know, easy for me to say. It seems like it's definitely a risk worth taking.
Yeah.
I had read somewhere, Rachel, and I don't know, I can't even remember the source. And it might have honestly been some random thing on Twitter, you know, but that Wish was going to have some hand-drawn content in it.
Oh,
And
I would love that.
I wonder, or someone was saying, and again, I sorry, I wish I could remember the source.
Wouldn't be that hard to believe, because if you think about Moana and a few of the others have had 2D elements at least.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll guess
it'll be interesting. But I agree. I think it's a very exciting time to be an animation fan when you have such experimental, exciting things like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish to come out of DreamWorks of all places. It's pretty fun.
It's so fun. And another Miyazaki film.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And a new Makoto Shinkai film this year. I can't wait for that.
I mean, I think we the viewers are the lucky ones, that we just have all this amazing content coming our way, and I just really hope that some of these films are going to really land and be really special, be really good.
And I just hope that people step out of their comfort zone a little bit and see some of these more these European films or things, because you really do miss out when you don't see the amazing things that different cultures can create and just experience different cultures. I just think it's a big mistake to just focus on Disney and just focus on
just kind of focus on North American animation. I'm not sure, at least I couldn't find, Rachel, has Little Nicholas does it have a plan to be distributed, speaking of North America?
Well, they emailed it to me to review, and so I thought it was getting some distribution.
I hope so.
But like something like that would usually make it to Utah, but I don't know if it was a problem with Sundance, being at the same time.
Rachel, it was also the while you're looking that up, wasn't it the writer who was involved with creating the Asterisk comic character?
That sounds right.
Because Asterisk, I remember, because I lived in Italy while I was doing my church mission, many moons ago. There were Asterisk comics and stuff all over, like at every newsstand and stuff. I think that Asterisk, I don't remember ever seeing much in the U.S., but I think in Europe that was a really popular and pervasive comic.
It was nominated for Annie Award for
Little
Best
Nicholas?
Indie. Yeah, for Best Indie Feature.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, it was Rene Goscinny, how you say it, the writer. He was one of the creators of the Asterisk comic book series.
It was just sent as a for your consideration Best Animated Feature.
Okay.
But I would imagine it gets something.
I hope so.
I mean, The Amazing Maurice, which is not as good as this. I mean, it was okay. It's getting 2,000 screens this weekend. It was at Sundance. So I think it could at least get like 500, 600, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have to keep a tab on it. People have to let us know if it's coming near you. Just says, this film is a labor of love spanning several years in the making, capturing the original story's strength and humor through its star-studded and accomplished cast. Yeah. The voice acting for the dub was good. They did a good job with it.
And I saw it with subtitles at the film festival.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So it was in French with English subtitles, if I'm not mistaken.
The thing about... I like watching with the sub, but it's hard to take notes.
Exactly. Not impossible.
Yeah. So it looks like some of the reviews started coming in January. I think it's getting some kind of release in January, but I don't know how many theaters. Anyway, if it comes near you, definitely check it out. It's really a sweet, lovely film about friendship, about art, about the artist's journey when he's struggling to come up with ideas, and their friendship and working together, and just being a child, and this dream childhood in a way that they create for little Nicholas. It's just all that stuff is just lovely.
Yeah,
it's really good.
It could not be more charming.
Yeah,
it's really, and if you like hand-drawn animation, I think it's definitely worth, at least, the style of hand-drawn animation is definitely worth checking out.
Well, let us know what you think if you got a chance to see this, and if you what you think. If you think we're into the golden age of animation, would love to hear your thoughts. And Stanford, where can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark, and I have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes, so check that out. Also, make sure you're following. Also, if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We also have in the merch store hashtag Animation Junkie shirts. So take a look at that. And check out the Patreon. It really helps us a lot. And you get a chance to be on the podcast or share your opinions. So take a look at that. And thanks so much. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Hey, bye.